Jacob Mizorowski reached 100 miles per hour 14 times last night. We'll talk about his debut and a whole lot more coming up on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Clay Link of RotoWire here with FSWA Hall of Famer Todd Zola. Glad to have you with us, whether it's on podcast platform or YouTube. Thanks for being with us, and got a lot to talk about today. Todd mentioned Jacob Mizorowski. Really nice debut last night. 5 no-hit innings before he had a little bit of a health scare. Had some cramping, which is good news relatively, because it looked like he might have rolled his ankle or something, but he said it was just cramping and an issue with his right leg, right calf and quad. But pretty exciting arm here. Big old 6'7" right-hander flamethrower. I do worry about the walks, though. How are you feeling after Jacob Mizorowski's debut last night?
The last time, this wasn't that long ago, right? The last time I said that what I'm about to say to myself was when Paul Skeens' debut, and I'm watching the game. I'm like, is that the camera angle, or is the ball really moving that much? Mm-hmm. Like sometimes, you get fooled of parallax, etc. Next day, on Twitter, and I looked it up myself. No, the ball was moving that much. James seems to think that some of the walks, maybe the ABS, he may benefit facing major league umpires. We'll see. It's all conjecture. We know the walks are an issue. The strikeouts are just insane. Yeah. And I didn't check like I do with Ben Brown after every outing. You see how much of a third pitch he threw. But when you throw 100 and you get a devastating slider, then we'll see what else, eventually you're going to need to throw a little bit more. But I was very impressed. And the Brewers accommodated Aaron Savali's request for a trade. Mm-hmm. Not that was going to block him from being in rotation, Jacob Mizorowski, but it looks like, he's there. Maybe we'll get some innings management down the stretch. But good Lord, is there going to be a higher upside? There's risk, but is there going to be a higher? Bubba Chandler? What other pitchers could possibly produce the upside, especially strikeouts, that Mizorowski can?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the question I kind of wrestled with when Hayden Birdsong was on the wire, just kind of like, who else on the pitching side is going to have this upside? And Birdsong doesn't have the K upside that Mizorowski does. Strikeout rates, routinely above 11 per 9, all throughout his time on the farm. And the walks though do kind of scare me, but we'll see if he can overcome them. And opportunity does seem to be there. I do kind of wonder, like you said, with innings, looks like he fell just shy of 100 last year between AA and AAA. It's 63 and a third this season.
And that's 90 more.
What's right?
That? I think you can get 90 more out of him, which is fine.
Maybe on the high end, but yeah, pretty exciting arm. And the Brewers just suddenly had an abundance of starting pitching. The old adage is that you can never have enough, but when Savali requested that trade, it didn't take long for them to make a move, and probably best for all parties involved, and Andrew Vaughn getting a fresh start.
So, yeah, it's listen, it's not going to break the blockbuster meter, but I like the deal for both sides. You mentioned it's free for the Brewers. Andrew Vaughn's underlying metrics, listen, they weren't fire red, but they were dim red. They were red on Statcast. Hasn't done much in the farm. We'll see. Unless Yelich can play some outfield, then I think Vaughn's starting on the farm with the Brewers. But I think there'll be an openings. Rhys Hoskins and Yelich taking first base and outfield. I like it. And Savali, I joked that what did the Brewers first call up the Rockies and then punished them by sending them to the White Sox. You know what? The White Sox isn't a terrible landing in that their pitching is up and coming, right? Burke and Smith on the team now, and Hagen Smith, and I mean even Taylor the reliever. There's a couple. There's some nice pitching. So Savali could be a nice mentor. I mean that might be a nice spot for him. I would think. Well, I kind of like the deal for both sides, but anyway,
Just get the opportunity to pitch every 5 days and make his case for his next contract. So,
what pitching coach job? Yeah,
better for him than he really seemed against moving to the bullpen, which I kind of understand for a long-time veteran. You have to change your routine entirely. It's entirely different mindset and preparation to pitch out of the bullpen.
Yeah,
compared to out of as a starter. Well, Jacob Mizrowski, exciting, and he's not the only one. Some other kid by the name of, let's see here, Roman Anthony, his name, just a little bit of a prospect here. Finally getting the call. We've talked several weeks running now about when is he going to be up. Finally gave him the call. Red Sox, though, 9.5 games back of the Yankees in the division, 2 games under 500. So they got a long way to go. It doesn't feel like this youth movement's going to be relied upon to claw their way back, but they're hoping to maybe inject a little bit of energy here. I don't know. Do you think the Red Sox are done this season? Do you think they can compete?
Yeah, I think the wild cards. I think the wild cards in their grasp. Any team that goes on a 6 or 7 or 8 game winning streak is suddenly in the wild card hunt, and then we'll see what happens. And now, do the Red Sox have the pitching to compete? I mean, they got Garrett Crochet, but he can only pitch 1 game. I don't think the Red Sox have got the pitching in the playoffs. That is, they can get to the wild card, but So what are the goals there? It's a rare chance. It's a rare circumstance where a team is trying to develop youngsters and seek. I was combining search and seek. Seek a playoff berth at the same time. So the fans think they should be in the playoffs. Well, we'll see. Anthony had a bit of a rough start. First game, it was a while ago at this point, but it's been that long since we've been together. Made a crucial error in a game against Tampa, side saddling a ball on wet grass that may have skipped under his glove. Next game, made a really nice diving play, so he wasn't shy about still playing aggressively. Had a double in that game. Hasn't done much at the plate. Fortunately, Marcelo Mayer has lately, kind of masking the fact that Anthony's off to somewhat of a slow start. But I think it's fun. I mean, I don't think anybody has the choice between Jack Caglione and Roman Anthony, but it's kind of like, which would you rather for the rest of the year? It's kind of an interesting comparison.
Caglione also off to a little bit of a slow start to his career, although he had a 4-hit game on Sunday, I believe.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited about him. I spent like 400 plus, 414, I believe, in the main event. And I imagine Anthony probably goes for 350 to 400 plus where available. So, and also on the West Coast, another new arrival here, Christian Moore.
Yes.
First round pick last year, 8th overall in the draft, first year player draft last year. James's number 1 prospect in the organization. Going to come up and try to help the Angels a little bit. Really good numbers at AAA, but it was the PCL. And when I look at the AA numbers at Rocket City this season, more plate appearances there, 146 and sub 700 OPS, 234 average, 342 on base, 323 slug. It's kind of where I set my expectations, closer to that. And that kind of leaves me a little underwhelmed. But what do you think? Do you think Christian Moore can come up and hold his own at the big league level?
It's pretty clear the Angels aren't shy about fast tracking their batters, right? Shanuel and Nato. Like you said, did not do well in AA, but accelerated more pretty quickly to AAA. I think how much can he help? I don't know. Is that a big power, not a big speed? More power, right? He's more power in his prime. If he's able to contact the ball, Moore could be one of those second basemen that provides more power than speed at the position. So it's a matter of roster construction. The strikeouts aren't huge, but you never know when you jump to the next level where they're going to land. So that's all, as it is with any youngster. It's about the strikeouts. But it's the intriguing aspect is more can provide power at a position where you're not necessarily looking for power. Could be hitting high up in the order. You'd think early on take some pressure off and let more hit down low in the order, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, again, the Angels are not shy about being aggressive with their youngsters, especially hitters.
Yeah, and his on-base skills could make him a fit there. And yeah, his final year at Tennessee in college had 34 home runs, but that type of power has not really showed up yet at the professional level. But yeah, an interesting player for sure. And he was actually the top pickup in the stake league last night at $15. Some questions I want to get to from the chat before we move on. One person was wondering if they should stash Luis Heel. Mentioned that Shane McClanahan is also available on the wire. I would probably stash McClanahan, given that sounds like he's just not making enough progress to be. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I love the lefty McClanahan, but they said that there was some progress, but not enough to continue with his throwing progression. And now going to visit a nerve specialist. Heel, I don't hate as a stash. Not like a high priority one, and still a ways away. So you threw a bullpen, but I mean, maybe by the end of the month, it's pretty murky on Luis Heel's timetable. I may look for somebody who could help me a little bit sooner if I can, but if those are your choices, I'd stash Heel over McClanahan.
Yeah, you're gonna do the next Tuesday's pod with Fred Zinke. Yeah. Fred and I filled in for Jeff last Tuesday, and we kind of informally said, pitchers of this ilk, if we expect them to be back by the All-Star break, we're okay stashing them because that's enough time to ramp up and still give you 8 or so starts over the second half. Heel is, I mean, right now it looks like he'll be ahead of the All-Star break, but it's kind of an aggressive projection. So he still would be my guy, or I would stash him still. But again, I'd probably look for someone else. Although, again, the upside. Although we weren't sure, he was out over skis a bit last year with the walks, especially. We don't know. The strikeouts are always nice. We don't know where he would have landed. We didn't see what any correction would give. Although, having said that, he's one of those guys that first half luck. Second half, he kind of fought off the luck by pitching better. So we're not sure what the baseline is yet for Luis Heel.
Yeah, Uncle Ted mentioned Grayson Rodriguez. He may be a stash if he's still out there. And then Saber mentioned that Christian Campbell was dropped in his league. Is he a pickup? I kind of think no. I was optimistic coming in and had a great start, but the way things are going lately, it sounds like the Red Sox considering a return to Worcester for Christian Campbell.
I still, long term feel he'll be a contributor. Doesn't take much to say that. Mm-hmm. But no, he is not a must get this weekend if he's available sort of player.
Yeah.
So would it surprise me if we regret not doing it? Yeah, of course. But there's a lot of players that can do that. So yeah, and it wouldn't shock me if Campbell sent down, especially if Merrick continues to hit as he's doing, and we'll see when Willie Abreu gets back what the Red Sox plan on doing. But yeah, it's not like they're going to lose a chance on the Rookie of the Year at this point with Campbell.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Then Abraham Toro was the second highest price pickup in the stake league last night behind Christian Moore. Abraham Toro goes for $6. I was pointing out in the chat that Toro has first base, second, and third in Yahoo leagues at least.
Yeah.
We've seen him for a while. We knew him when he was listed on sites as Abraham Toro Hernandez. So he's been up and down. He's shown flashes, but those flashes have fizzled out pretty quickly in the past. So
yep.
I'm a little skeptical here about chasing this.
Got playing time. You mentioned in most leagues he'll have first and third. He had 19 games last year at second base. So Towers has a 15-game eligibility. So there may be some leagues where it's first, second, and third, other than Yahoo. But I think generally it's first and third, which is fine in today's game. Nice eligibility, but it's one of those ride it while he's hot. He's got the playing time. The strikeouts, actually, they've been coming up lately. So I don't, 3-3 games isn't terrible. But that's what I look at when guys are on a hot streak. I look to see that I watch the strikeouts and see if the strikeouts start to show up before the batted ball luck goes away. But I mean, one of the reasons Campbell's being sent down potentially is because he's not needed at first base because Abraham Toro's done the job.
Yeah, that's true. He's getting it done now. I just
no, he'll be exposed. He'll be exposed.
Yeah, the flashes in the pan have been short-lived in the past. Behind Christian Moore at 15 and Abraham Toro at 6, I added Brandon Walter at 3. Been pretty impressed with what I've seen from him, and I just needed a starter. I lost Ryan Weathers, which really hurts.
Yeah.
Weathers now on the 60-day IL, and Walter, I believe, has a home matchup against the Twins looming. So I just needed somebody to plug in who's getting some starts. So I was pretty happy at $3. I think James is a fan, and Walter seems to have the endorsement of some pretty smart people around the industry. So I was happy with that. And Quinn Priester at $3 as well. He's, Jacob Mizrowski getting all the attention, but Priester's been pretty impressive himself for Milwaukee.
The Brewers have done a good job using the opener primary pitcher with Priester usually following a lefty, and that kind of sets them up to start the game against some lower level righties and then not have to face the lefties a third time. And it just worked out well.
Mm-hmm. And here's one I'm kind of mad that I didn't push hard for. Ryan Presley at 3. Since that one infamous blow up this season, he's been great. And I believe he got a save. Was it last night?
Yep, last night. And I was going to say worse than that. That's not really what I meant. Beyond that, Palencia got the hold. So it wasn't like wasn't available. It was Palencia struggled 3 or 4 days ago. Whether that was enough for Craig Counsell to say, wow, 12 straight scoreless outings for Ryan Presley. He's back. So we'll see. Actually, we may know in an hour or two, although it's going to be hard to get a lead over Paul Skeens. But with both Palencia and Presley having pitched yesterday, be curious to see what happens today if there's a save opportunity in Wrigley Field during the matinee.
Yeah, it feels like they wanted to get Presley back in that role, and they just kind of waiting for him to get back on track. He's done that and then some. So really, since that disastrous outing, he's been lights out. So
the strikeouts haven't been great, but now the walks are fine. He's earned the role. I don't think we talked enough about it. I think we're talking more about Palencia, how well Palencia is. I don't know that anybody out there said, don't be surprised if Ryan Presley gets the job back. I think we thought he was cooked, and I think that I say we. I mean, I don't. I'm sure someone out there was saying, don't forget about Presley. But I think as an industry, Presley wasn't getting the attention as a potential regaining the job as he deserved.
Yeah, we had a couple people mention in the chat that Danny Palencia faced the heart of the order in the 8th, and so that left the save chance.
Yeah,
that's
I saw that. I saw that, and I'm the guy that in our Slack that's always pointing that out. And I don't know. I just had the sense that it's not. Craig Counsell generally doesn't do that. So we'll see. That's what I'm saying. I'm curious today. I haven't flipped it on yet. The ball game this afternoon. It's only been probably in the 3rd inning or something like that. But Skeens in a matinee game, and you think people are watching? That's good. How many people took the day off of work to go see Paul Skeens?
Yeah, hopefully
against their Cubs. Yeah.
Yeah, and good to note that Palencia faced the heart of the order, but it will be interesting to see how that unfolds from here, because it's possible that Counsell just wants Palencia as like his high leverage guy.
It could be
fireman.
It would not. Yeah, no. Yes, that's absolutely possible.
Awesome. Well, next up here we had Adrian Hauser at 3, Michael Conforto at 2. He's been really rough this season, but maybe turning a corner. Davis Martin at $1, Spencer Horwitz at $1, Alec Thomas at $1, and then here's a pretty interesting one: Max Scherzer at $1. We're
talking about stashes. Back. I mean,
if we're talking Luis Heel, I might rather have Scherzer over Heel. Now
We'll
that
see. Yeah, I mean it's a dart throw,
yeah,
but
the thumb thing becomes an issue once his pitch count gets up, and who knows, maybe that's still going to be a problem for Scherzer. But he was looking good in the spring before the injury, so
no, for sure.
so we'll see about old Max Scherzer. Well, that's all I have for pickups this week. Get ready to open your wallets for Roman Anthony if you want him. And let's move on to our two-start pitchers here momentarily. But first, we'll pause briefly for a word from our sponsors. All right, we are back here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Clay Link and Todd Zola looking ahead to next week's projected two-start pitchers, and that's an important word because, man, a lot of times these guys just don't make that second start. And I had some guy mention that maybe we change things up here eventually, and we might. But yeah, it's the percentage of these guys that actually make that second start is, probably like, I think actually Jeff Zimmerman did a study on this once, and it was only like, between 50 and 60%. So know what you're getting into. Know that second start is never guaranteed, especially with rainouts.
What are we going to change it up to? I don't understand.
Well, I don't know. It's just a suggestion, but
I mean,
he makes a good point that it's two-start pitching can be kind of a futile exercise if you're really putting a lot of stock into that second start.
Well, we talk about that all the time. That this is all about getting the best single start pitchers because there's very few two starts that are available.
Yeah,
and that I was going to say, and now I forget my train of thought. Yeah, so what we do today, it hasn't changed that much by Monday. There's some changes for sure, but we're dealing with the same inventory that people are going to have to make their decision on Monday. So I think that's the thing. If they're, unless you do this two starts pitching thing on Sunday instead of Friday, that would be the only change. In which case, you'd have to look for a new co-host because I couldn't do it on Sunday. but yeah, I think that would be the better approach, if you will. But plus, too, it's more about our discussion. It gives us a chance to hit on every pitcher. Every couple of weeks we get to talk about everybody.
Yeah, it's kind of more of a jumping off point for a discussion. But I do think it's something that I want to stress that just don't bank on that second start. It's all extremely tentative. But yeah, I appreciate the feedback though.
To be, I agree. For instance, when I do the two-start pitching grade, I'm sorry, my pitching rankings, I take the points given to the two starts and I multiply it by 0.8 to account for the fact that second start may not occur. It kind of lowers the ranking relative to the one start guys. So it's kind of baked into my rankings, the fact that you don't always get that second start.
That's a good idea to mathematically implement that. That's a good idea. All right. Well, I have our two-start pitcher grid up here. Customized grid. Go with a custom start date of 6/16/2025. Already halfway through June. Here's a tough one right from the start. Brandon Pfaadt at Toronto, at Colorado. So this one, I think with the way he's been going, a lot of people probably sit him down. He did have a little bit of a bounce back his last time out against Seattle, but did give up 2 homers, only 4 strikeouts. So it's been a rough go for Pfaadt over the last month or so. Over his last 6 starts, he has a 9.89 ERA. Ooh, so that's has not been pretty for Pfaadt. And he has to go to Colorado. I'm thinking of 2 here, and that may be high, honestly.
To be honest, I think it is, and I was probably pro Pfaadt as anybody, at least in the site. I'm not going to say the industry. To me, it's almost like I'm gonna not touch him this week and pick him up on the come, hoping he gets better for the second half because he's probably gonna have a rough week. Is it a 1? I guess it's a 1, but I'd be really hesitant to use. I'm not picking him up for these 2 starts.
Mhm.
If I have him, maybe I figure my ratios are already so tanked that I need this 2-start week to help me get back on track. But as opposed to Luzardo, who I think we expected the bounce back, and he got it. Thought wasn't. I mean, he was a little bit disappointing for me before these 2 blow-ups. People are pointing out I should have expected it. So it's not as if he was, I was going to say raking. Shove it? That's what the kids say. It's not. I think the pitching equivalent of raking is shoving. He wasn't shoving before the blow-ups.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right. I think we talked last week about Luzardo and Fod, and Luzardo, we speculated might have been like tipping his pitches a little bit, and
That
it
was
seems
the
like
word. Yeah.
that might have been the case because he did get on track quickly.
Yeah.
Fod, though, it's he's still trying to get on track. So we'll see. I mean, I got you down as a 1. I'm sticking with 2, but I'm not. He does have 8 wins, but has not been pretty overall for Fod. So that Diamondback team is just kind of an odd team.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on, the Athletics, JP Sears and JT Ginn versus Houston versus Cleveland. I don't really want to start either of these guys.
Both at home.
I'm gonna say 1 on Sears and probably 0 on Ginn.
Yeah, we don't know what Ginn is right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed some promise. That game on Sunday, that Sunday game, the only games in the afternoon in Sacramento are going to be on Sundays, and that's when it's that's when it's warmest. So the ball could be flying on that Sunday. So that's why when you said 1 and 0, I agreed, because I think they're probably equal, but whichever had Sunday was going to get the lower mark for me. Yeah, I agree. I'm not hugely afraid of Houston as I have been in the past, but it's still potential. They potentially there.
Yeah, they're in first place, aren't they?
Yeah, you're right. It's just I think they have a top 15 offense, but it's usually top 5, something like that.
Yeah, I think their home run leader is Isaac Paredes. They haven't really gotten anything from Jordan this season.
Well, you're right. But Paredes is dinged up too.
Yeah. They're kind of a sleeping giant, it feels like, a little bit.
Well, that's what they were last year, remember? Yeah. Although it took them till the All-Star break to make their move. They made their move a little earlier this year.
Well, the Atlanta Braves seem to be getting on track, and then they kind of have cratered again since Ronald Acuna's return, of all things, which is kind of strange.
He's not the reason.
Yeah, he's like top 20 in the NL in WAR already.
Yeah.
F4, I think. And yeah, just strange how their season has gone so far. I do expect some of their hitters like Olsen, Albies to get going eventually. Grant Holmes has been a capable, back end starter for them. He lines up for 2 versus the Mets at Miami. You love that second one, but it is on a Sunday. Who knows if he gets it? This guy traveled through the minors for 10 years?
Something like that.
And now, finding his footing in the big leagues. Not as much success as at the end of last season, but still holding his own. Versus the Mets at Miami. I think I'm going to go 3. That may be a little high, though.
No, I'm going to go 3. I think he's going to be our comparison. In our heads, we're going to go, do I like him more or less than Grant Holmes? He's going to be our benchmark.
Yeah, that's kind of a good, middle tier guy that we will probably reference here. All right, so Grant Holmes a 3, Zach Eflin, Dean Kramer. Eflin 6-2, but kind of middling ratios. Kramer at Tampa Bay, at New York. With those 2 venues and offenses, I'm going to go 0 on Kramer.
I am too. I'm glad to hear you because, well, I'm not glad. I mean, you do your homework. He has not pitched well. He did all right as a primary pitcher, but teams are lighting up Dean Kramer.
Yeah, Dean Kramer gonna be a 0 there. But Eflin, a little bit of a harder decision. Those venues are so tough. You got to go to Steinbrenner Field and then to Yankee Stadium. I think I'm gonna go think I'm going to go 2, but I could see the case for lower on Eflin.
I think you can make the case for higher, but I'm going to go 2 as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Just
maybe.
because it's Eflin and he had a nice start, but I'm going 2 as well. I'm going to keep it conservative.
Yeah, those matchups scare me, but maybe I'm dinging him a little too much for the matchups. But I would tread lightly there. Lucas Giolito at Seattle, at San Francisco. Turn this one over to you to start because I kind of thrown my hands up with Lucas Giolito.
Exactly. I mean, I don't hate the matchups. I don't hate the venues. I don't love the matchups, but it's not a 0. But I don't know that I can say 3. I mean, I'm looking. Giolito looked better the last time, but he's still not racking up strikeouts. I'm going to go 2, and it's mostly. I'd much rather it be because of the pitcher than the venues and the matchups, but this is based on the 2 of the best pitching parks in the league.
So you're going 3.
I'm going to go 2.
Oh, 2. Okay, yeah.
I'm going to go 2. Chilo had a quality start last time, but he still only fanned 4 and walked 3 in the process.
Mm-hmm. Well, no 2-star pitchers in line for the Cubs. Things are a little in flux there. So we'll skip them for now. Could have a 2-star guy, but in our grid, best guess, no 2-star option. Andrew Abbott for the Reds, 6-1 with a 1.87 ERA through a complete game shutout. Last time out, he's been super impressive. Probably an all-star this season for the Reds, despite a delayed start to his season versus Minnesota at St. Louis. Man. Probably not a 5, but a 4 for me.
Yeah, yes, it's like you want to say 5, but does it deserve? I'm going to go 4. I think have been impressed. The strikeouts, to me, I mean, he's not Paul Scanes, right? But he's missing bats.
He's been super impressive. I've been thrilled to see what he's been able to do, and really the Reds being where they are is a big, big reason that is Abbott 6-1. Especially when guys like Zola kind of not doing so hot, and of course Hunter Green out again.
Well, Wade Miley's not the savior.
I don't believe so, but
if Wade Miley's the answer, I do not want to know the question.
Yeah, I wonder if Chase Burns is going to be up pretty soon. Kind of have him on the stash radar at this point. Of course, some leagues don't allow stashing, but I may look to pick him up.
We've seen Petty during a doubleheader, something like that. We saw a little Chase Petty, but Burns is the higher end prospect of the chases.
Mm-hmm. And Slade Ciccone, I think he was on the other side of that Andrew Abbott complete game recently. Ciccone at San Francisco at the Athletics. I've heard good things about him, and every time I see him, he looks pretty sharp. Let's see here. 8 strikeouts his last time out. Pretty good aside from a 5-run hiccup against the Angels. Overall, pretty darn good. So at San Francisco, at the Athletics, I think I'm going to go 3 here on Slade Ciccone.
Yeah, I think the thing with Ciccone is we talk a lot about what the Guardians can do, and I think people expected Ciccone to, from the get-go, show those traits, and it's taken a little bit. You don't know what's a tweak until you see what you're working with. Mm-hmm. So now I think we're going to start to see what the Guardians can do. Here's the first time I'm thinking, do I, where on the 3 scale am I gonna put? Do I want to start Ciccone, or was it Grant Holmes was our guy? I think they're pretty close.
Same.
I like the matchups. Again, the parks. Well, you don't love San Francisco. You don't like Atlanta. Well, you know what? As I just said, it's going to be hot in Sacramento. I'm going to go 3 as well, but I'm nervous about that second start.
The Giants team down now Matt Chapman, which is a pretty big blow to them.
And their catcher, Patrick Bailey. They're out 2 strong right-handed hitters.
That's true. I already went ahead and marked down 0s for Kyle Freeland and Antonio Santella.
Save us some little time.
Yeah, save a little time there. Sean Burke for the White Sox versus St. Louis at Toronto. Seems like some people, believe in Burke. Maybe you're one of them. Who's maybe seen some positives. But then his last time out, 7 earned runs over 3 2/3. He had been showing some good things before that. Hard to trust though. Tough guy to
It's
trust
the lack of
situation.
strikeouts.
Yeah.
You're vulnerable. You're susceptible to, you can have, it's like Mark Burley to keep it on the same team, right? You can have if the batted balls find leather, you look great, but if they don't, you're in trouble. I like the fact he's not walking people anymore. It's been 3 games. He's just tough to judge. But the lack of when you can't say, when I can't tell you, at least at least I know I'm going to get strikeouts, a 3 or a 2. Can't say that with Burke. So that tempers my enthusiasm a bit.
Yeah, good point. I'm going 1. What number are you putting on Burke?
Having said all of that, yeah, it's a 1 because coming in he was a Vero. We didn't want anything to do with him. So the fact we consider him, I think, is a plus. Don't love at Toronto, but I still think they're dangerous.
Tigers got some rough news with one of their top young arms, Jackson Jobe, needing Tommy John surgery. That's never what you want to hear. But Casey Mize has been a bright spot, and things have been going really well for them as a team. So still a nice few months here for the Tigers. Casey Mize has been great. A sub-3 ERA versus Pitt at Tampa Bay. My initial lean was 4 here. I don't know if I can actually go 4 on Mize.
Hasn't been going deep into games.
Yeah, I kind of put him closer to the Ciccone Holmes range, so I'm going to go 3.
I'm going to go 3. To me, he's a little bit ahead, but he started out so well, and I think one of those guys. You better take a look. Lately, it hasn't been quite as sharp. I know he added the cutter, hoping we'd see it, improve as the year goes on. It still may. Had a nice outing last time, but we got to, through his 6th outing, he was, going not 80, 90 pitches. He had 104 pitches and 90 last time. But actually, you know what? The two outings where he didn't throw many pitches were following being out a bit. So maybe he's just getting back on track. But I think 3 is fine.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, just slightly ahead of the Ciccone Holmes.
Yeah,
here, but not much. So 3 for me. All right, next up we have Lance McCullers at the Athletics at the Angels. Had that one really rough outing against the Reds. Let's see how. Took another loss his last time out, 4 earned runs. But before that, 6 innings, scoreless, and only 2 hits. So up and down for McCullers, still kind of finding his footing after such an extended absence. So it was like, almost 2 years?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go 2, but it's kind of playing with fire here.
Would have preferred, of all teams to walk 4 guys, it'd not be against the White Sox, but it was just one of those things. I mean, I'm actually tempted to say 3. The strikeouts are there. And aside from the 4 walks last time, 33 strikeouts and 21 in a third. So I put him in the same group as we're talking about with the 3s. I'm going 3 McCullers. Maybe it's a bit of leap of faith, but I'm going 3.
Okay, I hear you. I'll get you down as a 3 there on McCullers. I had 2. Real quick in the chat, this is a good question. Is Bailey Ober a drop? It's been a really rough go for him lately. 4 homers yesterday, 7 earned runs. Hasn't had a win since May 3rd. I'm assuming you're going to say no here.
Well, we've seen ups and downs, and then Ober had a long stretch facing weak opponents last year and crushed it. But the difference is, and as Uncle Ted, alludes to, we're dealing with not just an injury, but what pitchers get the bone spurs in the elbow now? It'll come to me. Maybe you remember. There's a pitcher dealing with it in this elbow now. That if those spurs, I know it's the hip versus the elbow, but everything's fine. If those move just a tiny little bit, they can be really, really, really painful. And all right, the hip's not the arm, but what happens with pitchers is it hurts. You adjust your motion so it doesn't hurt, and you hurt your arm. So I think there's reason to be concerned with Ober. I'm not positive he's going to bounce back like I was last year, in a 12-team league, I can see dropping him. You may regret it. In a 15-team, I want to find out more about the injury.
Yeah, in addition to those 4 homers yesterday, 6 walks. What the heck?
Yeah,
It's almost amazing that he only gave up 7 earned runs. When you
he usually
walk
walks 6 in a month.
Yeah. It's actually 7 earned runs isn't bad for 6 walks and 4 homers. Kind of amazing. I would lean drop in 12-teamer as well. Probably hold in 15. But back to our 2-star pitchers here. Chris Bubich at Texas, at San Diego. The Texas team, by the way, was the one that got to Ober yesterday, and they're like one of the worst offenses in baseball, or have been.
Right.
But Bubich at Texas, at San Diego sets up pretty well. I'm tempted to go 5, but I'll probably just go 4 because, I like to reserve those 5s.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the outing versus the Yankees. The Yankees are going to do that to a lot of teams. And I believe, just to wrap it up, and maybe someone said it in the chat, and if I did, I apologize for, but I believe it was Bryce Miller, the guy that's dealing with the spurs in the elbow.
Oh, yeah. He's had a, rough season, and seems like the injury's large reason why. We had a question about a trade. Let me know too. Got DeGrom and Ranger Suarez for Caminero. I don't love that in a vacuum, mostly because I love Caminero, but he says he has Westberg and Isaac Paredes at third. So it sounds like he had a little bit of a surplus. I've just been so impressed with what Caminero has done. I'm just kind of waiting on that next DeGrom injury. But given the context and the fact that you have a couple good third basemen behind Caminero, I don't hate it.
It's interesting because, all right, you've got your, I'm not saying it's even, Suarez for Caminero, was that even? Maybe that's a little bit edging to Caminero. So as the sweetener, DeGrom, I mean, it could go sour or it could win you the league. So that I think it's an interesting trade. I like that. I mean, I don't think it's wrong or right. I think it's an interesting trade. I think it's a good approach.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I just, Caminero just looks like a star in the making.
Yep.
21 years old.
Could be some more. Jason Kled points out, the gloves coming along too.
That's big for that team. Okay, for the Angels, Jose Soriano, Kyle Hendricks. They got to go to Yankee Stadium, then home against Houston. Soriano, not a 0, certainly, but kind of, the whip is high, really high. Hendricks probably going to be a 0, but
Hendricks is a 0.
Yeah, Soriano, probably going to go 2. But
yeah, I'm not putting him in that same tier as we talked about.
Yeah.
So that leaves 1 or 2. Houston's beatable. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go 1. I'm souring on Soriano a bit.
I hear you. Yeah, that whip is.
He's going to go 1.
I hear you on that.
Holy cow! Just look at these 7 names for the Dodgers.
I know. Who would have thought? Like so much depth coming into the season. Apparently, Ohtani's pushing to, pitch at some point before too long.
Yeah,
we'll see if they let him. And Ben Kasparius is kind of interesting. He's being given more of a traditional starting role, but Justin Robleski is who we have lined up for 2.
Right.
Versus San Diego versus Washington. Normally, I wouldn't really consider him, but these matchups at home. San Diego to start, though, and you're not guaranteed anything beyond that. I may go 1, but it's kind of like
it's a Dodgers. We talk about point leagues 1. It's a Dodgers 1, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. Robleski, I think he showed more promise last year than he's done this year.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Kasparius. To me, it's what took you so long, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they kind of had him as an opener, and then like bulk guy.
And he's been stretched out long enough to just do it, and I'm glad they are.
Yeah,
I'm keeping my expectations under control. I know the stuff's there, but I do like the fact that they're giving Kasparius a shot, the Dodgers.
Yeah. Sandy Alcantara, one of the biggest disappointments so far this season. has been
For some of us.
he's been a huge bust for fantasy. But lately his last 2 starts have been improvements. Actually, just 2 earned runs allowed over the last 12 innings.
Against?
Yeah, against Colorado at home and then at Pitt. So definitely an asterisk.
You know what though?
there.
I mean, I'm somewhat tongue in cheek. I look at that, but I'd rather have him do really well than really bad. But I'm not completely brushing off the fact that he pitched better.
Yeah, we had some questions about Yuri Perez, by the way. And after his first few batters faced and his return, people were over the moon about the guy, and then ended up not a very good start at all. I'm still pretty excited about him, but coming off surgery and the long layoff, I'd temper expectations and maybe like $100 out of $1,000 budget. Even that may be a little high.
Spoiler alert: we're doing an interesting question now for Tout Table, but next week, one of the questions is going to be rest of season. Yuri Perez, Sandy Alcantara.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm on the Perez side because I think there's more upside, and I don't see even if Alcantara gets it going again, the strikeouts still aren't there as much as we'd like for, say, the NFBC, and I see still a ratio risk. But we know the Perez has the strikeout upside. I'm not counting on it, but anyway, I think it's an interesting comparison. These 2 starts, both at home, right? So that you don't hate that. Philly, Atlanta. Is he back into the 3 range?
I had a 2 written down, but I could see it. And actually, between him and Perez, I might go on the Alcantara side
I
because
think that
he's just too good to keep pitching like this.
I'm going to be in the minority for taking Perez, and it's more contextual, which is one of the reasons I'm putting up the question. I'm going to go 3.
Okay. So you're a little higher this week, but I'm maybe a little higher long term.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, Chad Patrick at the Cubs. I'm definitely turning Mizorowski loose at the Cubs next week, even with that little injury scare, the cramping in his calf and whatnot. But Chad Patrick at the Cubs at Minnesota. He's pitched quite well. I think I'd have him below the Grant Holmes Ciccone, though. So I think I'm thinking 2 on Chad Patrick.
He's pitched well, but I don't know, call it so much a hiccup. 3 walks the past 2 games, 2 homers last time against Atlanta. Still going to high 90s, mid to high 90s with pitches. I'm going to go 2. I like the development, but I'm going to go 2.
What about David Festa at the Reds, then versus Milwaukee? You don't love him going into Great American Small Park, but it's not like the Reds offense really strikes a ton of fear in you.
You say the same about American Family Field, right?
Yeah, but it is versus the Brewers.
Oh, okay.
So
Never mind.
Never mind. Field. Just wanted to clarify. Is Festa even a 2? I'm thinking a 1.
I am too. I like the fact he's starting to show something. Well, all right, 1 start, but I'm just gonna go 1 for now.
Yeah, that's until I see a little more. And Zebby Matthews out, so they've.
Yeah.
I know some people are excited about him, but we'll have to wait a while yet before we see Zebby. All right. Next up, David Peterson. How about a 2.49 ERA, the lefty at Atlanta? Has some good right-handed bats. Then at Philly. Man,
just to give him a 4 shows you how well. I'm giving him a 4.
Really?
And I think that's a testament how well he's been pitching.
I'm thinking only a 3 given the matchups, but I get you down as a 4.
He's gone through the Dodgers twice, the Yankee. Maybe the Mets. No, he is done. He's on the Mets. He's had really tough opponents. I'm going to go 4.
All right. Well, you clearly like what you see.
Yep, I do.
I'm kind of waiting for, it's easy to scream regression here when he's got a 2.49 ERA, but I'm just kind of waiting for him to run into some tough right-handed bats here pretty soon. Clark Schmidt and Will Warren for the Yankees versus the Angels versus Baltimore. Pretty favorable matchups here.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Schmidt, Will Warren. I'm thinking 2 on both, but maybe I could see a case for higher.
I'm going 4 on Schmidt.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not there
Warren,
for me, but
I like what I'm seeing. It's the matchups. I'm going to go 2 on Warren as well. I don't see what other people see with Warren, but I'll go 2. The matchups are warranting it 2.
well, for the Phillies, we were kind of wondering, when's Aaron Nola going to be back? But he's had a setback, and that affords Mick Abel more time in that rotation. Mick Abel and Jesus Luzardo, the 2-start guys, projected for Philadelphia at Miami versus the Mets. Those are some good venues to pitch in. I'm thinking Mick Abel 3 and Luzardo 4. What say you?
I'm going to go 2 for Abel. Haven't seen enough to go quite there yet, but he's going to get a chance. We're going to see Painter by the end of the year, but I think it's going to be Abel for the short term. I think we get 10 starts out of Painter towards the end of the season.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So you said 2 on Abel. What about Luzardo?
I want to go 4. Did I say 4? Did I say 3?
I said 4, but
I think I'm going to go 4. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like he's ironed out whatever was.
Just don't let guys on second base, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Easy.
Just get around those righties. Figure it out. Bailey Falter at Detroit versus Texas. I see him pop up like when I'm searching top available arms in several leagues, and I can't do it. But at Detroit versus Texas, somebody's probably going to pick him up, but I'm thinking only like a 1.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't trust him many places. Dylan Cease, been a struggle for him largely this season. He's got to face the Dodgers on the road and versus Kansas City. Same 2-step for Randy Vasquez. Cease, I want to say 4, but it's the way he's pitching is more like a 3. I think I'll go 4 though. Is just given his body work over the past several seasons, and it is Dylan Cease. I expect better in the long term. Vasquez though, probably only a 1, and maybe even a 0.
Yeah, I'm thinking 0 for Vasquez. Maybe because it's more about revenge. Not some what's not revenge. I can't think of the word. When you drop a guy out of spite, there's a term that we use in the industry.
Spite drop?
Maybe it is a spite drop, but whatever it is.
Kind of like call it.
But gosh, Cease. I wish I liked the last outing, but he had walked 5 batters. I know they were the Dodgers, but I can't justify a 5 yet. So I have to go 4. And although I think we could see 5 outings though, or 5 quality out, I think he can pitch like a 5. I'm going to go 4.
He's kind of been a 5 like for the past several seasons, but he's pitched a lot more like a 3.
I'm starting it everywhere.
Yeah,
but I'm just gonna, yeah.
And I'm with you on Vasquez. I changed it to 0.
Okay.
I don't see any reason
Didn't
to
take
start
your
him.
finger off the piece. We're good.
Logan Gilbert, he's got a 2.37 ERA versus Boston versus Chicago. I like these matchups for the right-hander generally, but Cubs are of course pretty good. But venues, I think, are pretty favorable for Gilbert.
It'll be his first starts back, right? And
yeah,
I don't know that we'll see 90 pitches at 95 pitches, so I have to temper expectations because of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking a 4, but what say you?
I'm going to go 3. I'm afraid of the innings.
All right, that makes sense.
There's some potential there.
We had a question, by the way, about Cease, who we were just talking about. If he's a good trade target, I think, given just how bad he's been, I think you can buy pretty low.
And if he
that's in theory, though.
And if he bounces back, it's the quality that can help you. It's not going to.
Yeah.
The upside is such that it's not just going to be a parallel thing. He could help. He could also crush you, but he could really help you.
Yeah, and as long as the person you're acquiring him from isn't driving a super hard bargain, kind of asking draft day prices for Cease, I think that makes a lot of sense. Robbie Ray versus Cleveland versus Boston. Ray's been a Cy Young candidate so far.
Yeah.
Versus Cleveland versus Boston, both at home. I think that's
Boston
probably a
crushes
5.
lefties. but it's Robbie Ray.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 5.
Yeah, I've had to eat my words about Ray, and just keeps pitching well. Matthew Liberatore, the lefty at the White Sox versus Cincinnati. Pretty nice two-step for him, although he's kind of fallen back to earth, right? Yeah, he's not been so great over his last 3 starts, but good numbers still overall. Let me see these matchups again. At the White Sox versus the Reds. I'm thinking a 3 on Liberatore.
Yeah, to me, he's in that group, right?
Yeah.
He's in that middle group there. Strikeouts are still not, the strikeouts are not there. Giving up home runs lately. Yeah, gonna go 3. He's not pitching. I think it's a matchup based 3. He's in the 2 range.
Yeah, and people also wanted to know about Bubic, if he's a guy to trade. I could see selling high, but I think that's in theory, and then in practice, like, what are you really going to give for him? Is it really going to be?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody who's produced at the level he's produced at this season. I think that may be a tough one, unless you can find a really good deal. Somebody who's really high on Bubic, I'd probably just ride it out. Okay, Ryan Pepio, Zach Littell versus Baltimore versus Detroit.
For a team that's supposed to have a road heavy schedule, they got a lot of home games.
Yeah, I'm thinking these guys are kind of both 3s. Maybe Littell, with the way he's pitched lately, is a little higher.
I think they both pitch well lately, and I say that's something to take. July is when they make up some of those road games.
Those guys both just fall into that middle bucket, I think, for me.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yes, because they are in Tampa at this time of the year, I'm going to go 3. It's still a hitting environment.
Guy in the chat mentioned that Wyatt Langford was dropped in his league. It has been pretty rough go lately, although I think he homered yesterday.
He did.
So I'd probably scoop him up. I think he
absolutely
should be rostered pretty much everywhere. Plus, stealing quite a few bags this season.
Yep.
So
yeah,
I'd rectify that if you have a roster spot, or you'd make a roster spot to grab him. Jack Leiter versus Casey at Pitt. It's pretty nice. But I'm thinking I'm going to throw him in that same bucket. But he'd be a pickup if he's out there. I'm going to go 3.
I'm going to go 2, but I agree with your analysis.
Okay. Got you down as a 2 there on Leiter. Chris Bassett versus Arizona versus the White Sox. Was really bouncing back well, but he's kind of looked more like last year's Chris Bassett lately. He's given up 4+ in 3 of his last 4 starts. This is kind of the Chris Bassett I expected coming in. So let's see these matchups versus Arizona versus the White Sox. I'm going to put him a notch below that middle tier at a 2.
I'm going to give him a 3 just because I always give Chris Bassett a 3.
Okay. I had him last year during that brutal stretch, so I've kind of soured on
Yep.
So much is about personal experience.
Yeah.
You try not to let that factor in, but it's when you've been burned by a guy, it's tough to trust him again. Yep. Jake Irvin and Michael Soroka versus Colorado, then at the Dodgers. Kind of 2 opposite ends of the spectrum.
Exactly.
In terms of matchups. Irvin and Soroka. I'm thinking 2 on both, but I could see the case for 1s here.
I'm going 1 and 2. 1 Irvin, 2 Soroka.
Okay. All right, I got you down there. You said 2 on Soroka.
Right? Yep. He's missing more bats than I expected.
Yeah, that's true. I have him in the stake league, and he's been okay. Got a win for me recently, but it's it feels like the Nationals leave him in too long. They need to figure out when to lift him. Yeah. But anyway, 2-star pitcher grades. We'll review these for the week of June 16th, 2025. Brandon Pfaadt, I say 2, Todd 1. JP Sears 1. JT Ginn 0. Grant Holmes 3. Zach Eflin 2. Dean Kramer 0. Lucas Giolito 2. Andrew Abbott 4. Slade Ciccone 3. Kyle Freeland, 0. Antonio Senzatella, 0. Sean Burke, 1. Casey Mize, 3. Lance McCullers, I say 2. Todd, 3. Chris Bubich, 4. Jose Soriano, I say 2. Todd, 1. Kyle Hendricks, 0. Justin Robleski, 1. Sandy Alcantara, I say 2. Todd, 3. Chad Patrick, 2. David Festa, 1. David Peterson, I say 3. Todd, 4. Clark Schmidt, I say 2. Todd, 4. Will Warren, 2. Mick Abel, I say 3. Todd, 2. Jesus Luzardo, 4. Bailey Falter, 1. Dylan Cease, 4. Randy Vasquez, 0. Logan Gilbert, I say 4. Todd, 3. Robbie Ray, 5. The only 5 on the list this week. Matthew Libertor, 3. Ryan Pepio, 3. Zach Littell, 3. Jack Leiter, I say 3. Todd, only 2. Chris Bassett, I say 2. Todd, 3. Jake Irvin, I say 2. Todd, 1. And then Michael Soroka, 2. Well, good stuff there. Somebody here said never bet against Bassett, but I think he's just joking. Good discussion today, as always, Todd. Anything else you want to mention today before we sign off?
No, we're doing, weather's warming up. Baseball's fun. Let's have some fun out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's keep pushing, keep fighting, and clawing our way up the standings.
Yep.
Thanks for everybody in the chat. It was a lively discussion. We appreciate that. And hope you'll join us again next week on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast.